Three, two, one. Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, is one of the best ways for you to exit highly appreciated $1 million assets, cryptocurrency, businesses, real estate, so you can defer capital gains tax and create and preserve more wealth. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial, cryptocurrency, business, and leadership minds in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. We're also streaming on expert CRE secrets as well, where we're helping real estate brokers, M&A advisors, and business brokers grow their business in a whole new way. You can check that out. I'm excited about our next guest. He is out of the great state of Virginia, and he's on a mission to help you take your sales and your revenue and forecast them well. He's an entrepreneur and CEO with a passion for driving success through data-driven decision making. And he helps companies connect the dots to drive actionable insights to power their revenue growth. And he is the founder and CEO of Forecast Era. And it's the number one or top accounting, planning, sales, revenue, and demand forecast suite to navigate to Salesforce. Please welcome to the show with me, Rahul Shah. Hey, Rahul, how you doing?
Hey, good, Brett. Thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. And for our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you give us a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yeah, so my story was prior to starting Forecaster, I was the CFO for America's region at one of the large corporations in Virginia. And what I found was, I was leading a big organization, and there was a lot of disconnects between the sales team and the finance team. And ultimately, as the CFO, I was responsible for giving a forecast, accurate real-time forecast to my stakeholders, which in turn was, giving it out to the Wall Street. I always found there was not a really good system to collaborate across the organization, particularly on the sales side and the finance side. And that's why I started the company Forecast Era.
Excellent. And, I believe we've all been given certain gifts in this life, Rahu, to be a blessing and help to others. Some people call them strengths, some people call them superpowers. So I want you to go back to your younger days, and I want you to think about that. Maybe what's that one or two gifts that you believe you were given, and how does that help how you help and bless people today?
Yeah, so one of the gifts I was given was obviously to help the community. And, my father encouraged me from a young age to be very entrepreneurial. I feel being entrepreneurial helps you create growth, create jobs, help others in the economy. And that was one of the things early on that I was always encouraged to be very entrepreneurial. I started my first business when I was 16 years old. Obviously, didn't succeed, but that's something that I always look at in the past.
Excellent. Love that. Yeah, being an entrepreneur and being willing to help others and solve problems, create jobs. It's great. So let's dive right into the topic at hand, which is the number one secret to sales and revenue forecasting. So Rahul, what is the number one secret to proper sales and revenue forecasting?
So I would say it's getting the data, underlying data correct. So at least what I find is a lot of companies have data silos between sales and finance, getting that aligned, and then with a plethora of tools out there, including AI, how do you accurately forecast revenues, across and look at it from an organizational lens instead of a siloed lens, is kind of what I would say is the number one secret.
Okay, so number one secret is getting the underlying data correct and then looking at it from like a bigger macro organizational lens. Is that a fair summary for first secret?
Absolutely.
Excellent. What's the number two secret?
Number two secret, I would say, is having the mindset and collaboration between the various stakeholders, because more often than not, I see that people are doing their own thing in their silos. So getting that culture of collaboration within the company is very important to make sure you get an accurate forecast.
Excellent. So it's mindset and collaboration. So making sure the key stakeholders in different sales or marketing or accounting or different departments are all of the same mindset or they're collaborating and communicating. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, we're moving quickly. What about number three?
Number three, I would say, is making sure that there's tools and processes in the company that are set up to kind of get all of this data in one place. Because again, what I've seen is if you're trying to do this predominantly, I've seen done on spreadsheets or Google Sheets. the data is always going to be, yesterday's news because somebody's changed it since you last looked at it, and it's not real time. So getting it real time in a tool, and putting a cohesive process around that is really important.
Got it. Okay, so tools and processes set up, get it all set up where it's producing in real time the data, and then where you're able to also process and make decisions on that. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely.
We're moving quickly. I can tell why you're good at what you're doing, because this is exactly what you do every single day. So now let's talk into forecast era and how they go about solving that problem. So what have you guys found your kind of your secret sauce to solving those problems?
Yeah, so what we've seen in the marketplace is there's been an explosion of technology in the forecasting space, but it's again what I told you, it's predominantly siloed around. People have a sales forecasting solution that's tailoring to the VP of sales or a chief revenue officer. You then have somebody selling a finance solution to the CFO or the VP of FP&A, financial planning and analysis, and they're doing their own thing. And in this kind of a marketplace where we're seeing potentially a recession coming, supply chain issues, it's very important to make sure that you are looking at that same set of data, and that's what really Forecastera does. Is we basically plug into your CRM system like a Salesforce. We make sure the workflow from sales is then collated correctly of the sales organization, and the same data, and that's the same foundation for finance to use, to create that forecast, which eventually becomes the basis for your Wall Street guidance, or if you're a private company, reporting back to your investors. And that's really our secret sauce: is how do we get the data, the tools, the processes between these two organizations in one place, so we remove the silos. Obviously, after that, what we're doing is we're applying artificial intelligence. I know that's a buzzword, but really understanding the trends to predict where our numbers could be is really important. So that's again something that we're enabling with our software to do. And then the final thing is scenario planning, right? So you want to create different scenarios, and how do you start looking at those scenarios and be ready to act on one versus the other based on market conditions?
Okay, great. So let me see if I got that. So you plug your system into something like a Salesforce or into other CRMs, and it's going to help you to maybe digest all of that information, all the data, and then do forecasting. So what would be this Salesforce, like what do they do? Like what is it that they're doing and that you're coming on top? So help us understand that, because I've used Salesforce, right? And it seems to have some things, but try to paint the picture for us in our minds with what exactly Forecastera is doing, or how it's doing it. Maybe it's a better way to put it.
Absolutely. That's a great question, Brett. So what we're doing is Salesforce obviously is a leading CRM. They have a lot of data in the CRM. More often than not, your business process and how deals are moving are in the CRM. What the CRM system doesn't really do is give you that revenue intelligence. So as a sales leader, I want to understand how are my reps doing, right? And I always call forecasting an art and a science, right? And how do you kind of bring that together is really important. And what Forecaster is doing is it's adding all these revenue intelligence signals to help the chief revenue officer or VP of sales come up with a better forecast, which is how do I call a number, right? Is my forecast accurate? And where the art comes in is, I have a sales team, and some people I know always will come in hot, some people will come in cold, right? And before a tool like Forecastera, it's all in the sales head's mind that they're trying to guess based on what I call their tribal knowledge, what the number is. What we do is we collect it ground up and we give an AI aided view to really call on that number for the sales office. So that's step one. Step two is we're using that data, and what finance wants to do is not all sales equal revenue. What I mean by that is, you obviously have GAAP rules as to how you recognize revenue. And what our software does is takes that sales forecast that the CRO has created, and then we apply GAAP rules, and we come up with a forecast that is what a CFO would use ultimately to give guidance to Wall Street or to make their decisions. And that's kind of the secret sauce of collaborating between these two important kind of functions in the company to produce a very actionable forecast.
So is it kind of like a third party auditor? Like if someone were to go into your Salesforce automatically and distract the information and then put it so you could, so it's something that's on the side that's constantly doing that and giving you the real time numbers. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, that's a very fair assessment, right? So if you think of it, right, I have a deal in my Salesforce. The deal has moved from stage one to stage two, and or the start date of the deal has moved out. What we're able to do is collect all of this data in real time. And so if you think of yourself as a CFO, you're coming in there and you're having your cup of coffee in the morning. You really want to know, where do I stand for the quarter? I gave a guidance to Wall Street or to my investors, and I really want to understand, what is my forecast. We really make it as easy as you click a button, and with all those movements that happen till the minute before, you get a real-time picture of your revenue.
Got it. Okay, I think it's clicking now. That's really cool. It's really cool. And I imagine the hardest thing for people is their sales reps or their salespeople are actually putting and updating the stages correctly, right, and putting everything in there in a timely fashion, right? So it's like the chicken and the egg. It's like they're probably chasing them to try to get them to do it so that they can accurately report, right?
No, that's absolutely right. And that's kind of also where we help, right? Which is kind of those revenue signals, making it easy for a salesperson to update Salesforce to make sure their stages are accurate. And the other way I look at it is, if you start doing your forecasting based on data in Salesforce, it forces management to start looking at the data. And if the data hygiene is not there, it becomes a forcing function, because if the CFO is going to look at the forecast and somebody comes in and says, oh, this deal moved out, or you didn't move it in Salesforce, so you get a slap on your wrist for not doing it. So it kind of becomes a forcing function when you have a tool within Salesforce to do this with a certain amount of rigor that doesn't exist if you just leave it without a software like Forecast Era.
Excellent. By the way, you can learn more about Rahul and Forecast Era by going to forecastera.com. That's forecast and then era.com. You can also find Rahul on LinkedIn, Rahul, and it's SHAH, and then add the Forecastra Cast Era on there to find him on LinkedIn. So very cool. Okay, interesting. So let's talk a little bit about what we're seeing as far as QuickBooks. A lot of people use QuickBooks. Actually, let's touch on this real fast. How does it connect with QuickBooks and doing things there, like, or is it, give us that integration?
That's a great question as well, right? So what is happening is, one of the challenges we've seen is salespeople or account managers want to start seeing their actuals against how they're forecasted, right? And a lot of that information is in the financial systems. It could be QuickBooks, it could be an ERP system like SAP or NetSuite or Oracle. What we're also doing is we're bringing all of that data together, right? So when you look at a forecast, if I'm in the month of June, I have my actuals till the month of May and my forecast going out. What we're able to do is give that real-time picture to sales and account managers as to what their trend looks like, and then what their forecast is. So we have integration with accounting systems, ERP systems, which pulls all of that data into our software. So it becomes that single source of truth for sales and finance to collaborate on the revenue forecast.
Excellent, fantastic. So I love that they can connect that as well. So let's shift a little bit to capital gains tax, and we'll see. We'll test your knowledge on some of this stuff, right? But I'm curious. Do you do any like investing into investment properties, or do you do anything like that? And if so, what's been your biggest frustration when it comes to capital gains tax? Maybe it could be the sale of your tech company, cryptocurrency, or a business, or real estate, or the 1031 exchange. If you ever used one of those ones that are kind of tough. Anything come to mind on that, Rahul?
Yeah, so I think, with the investment properties, I think one of the decisions is, do you do it in an LLC? What's the best way to structure your tax? You obviously get some benefits of depreciation. So what's the best way to invest in a investment property is one that I would say. And then, cryptocurrency is something that, I've tried to dabble, but, I've stayed away for the most bit. But it's really interesting to understand how capital gains impacts, like, you have a big meltdown in crypto, right? So do you sell now? Do you hold it? What's the best way to optimize your capital gain strategy there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's, we work with crypto millionaires to help them exit highly appreciated cryptocurrency and defer millions in tax. In fact, we had a client, she worked for a big tech company in Silicon Valley. She bought Bitcoin for about $50,000 years ago, and it went to as high as $50 million. And so it's an amazing amount of gain. And at 54,000 a coin, she's able to exit about 5 million of that, defer about 1.85 million of tax into the Deferred Sales Trust. And either ways, sell high right before the market crashed to about 25,000 a coin. And that's a cool thing you can do. And then what's really unique about this, Rahul, this funds she can then put into a business venture, actually a tech startup company, educational online type of kind of like a Khan Academy type of venture to educate. And that was part of her dream and retire from the big tech job. So that's something that's available, and it's really neat. If anyone's curious about that, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can get our free ebook, and you can learn about how to exit cryptocurrency. It also works for businesses. It works for public or private stock, primary homes, investment real estate. Can save a failed 1031 exchange. Just go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That being said, Rahul, are you ready for the lightning round?
Yes.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you can go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget you'd make sure to tell yourself to do?
Just be proactive. That's the one golden nugget, right? You don't want to be a reactive individual.
Excellent. Question number 2. What is the number one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
The Lean Startup is my always all-time favorite. That's the one that I would say I would recommend to people.
Excellent. Who's that by? Who's the author?
Forget the name. I think it's Kawasaki. Maybe.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. Perfect. Question number 3. What are you most curious about right now?
I'm curious about, are we getting into a recession or not? Because I feel like the fear of recession is worse than the recession itself.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? It's some mixed, it could be some mixed signals in people's sentiment and how quickly that can change. So we'll see, right? Question number 4. What's your number one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
It's lead by example, right? That's really, you got to live it, right? Especially in a startup, versus a big company, you really want to lead by example because people are looking at you and your leadership. And if you're not setting the right example, people are not going to follow.
Excellent. Well said. Last question. After all your success and helping the people you've helped, building the systems and businesses that you've built, how do you stay centered? What's the habit that you practice to stay centered in your values and stay encouraged to charge forward to reach new heights?
I would say personally, I do meditation that helps me stay centered, not doing it for a long time, but, sometimes I do it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, taking those breaks, energizing yourself, and going at what's next is really important.
Rahul, Shah, I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to encourage you to keep being an entrepreneur, living to help other people solve problems, especially in sales and forecasting, helping them to run their companies even better than they had before. For our listeners who want to get in touch with you, would you remind them one last time what's the best place for them to find you?
LinkedIn is a good place. Like you said, Rahul Shah with the words forecaster should pop up my profile. Message me, connect with me. I always like to connect with new people.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for being on the show. I also want to thank our listeners for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, also streaming on Expert CRE Secrets, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. They also sometimes struggle with clarifying their sales and forecasting options, right? And how to navigate through all of the data and all the ever-changing, fast-paced world that we're in. And using a deferred sales trust to defer capital gains tax is amazing, but also connecting with someone like Rahul with forecastera.com to solve those problems so you can grow your business and create and preserve more wealth. If you want to learn more about, again, Rahul, you go to forecastera.com. And if you want to learn more about the capital gains tax solution of the deferred sales trust, go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Thanks so much for watching and or listening to this podcast episode. We also have our YouTube channel you can subscribe to as well. Please rate, review, subscribe, and that helps us to spread the word to help more people. Appreciate everyone out there. Talk to you again real soon. Bye now.